Hello there. Today I'm going to go over the process of getting a custom 3D model into Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2 from Blender. Specifically for a model replacement, sometimes it's a little tricky with all the steps to keep in mind. A lot of this information is not all in one place, so I thought this would be a useful video. Okay, let's go. First of all, you'll need to download all of the tools you need to work with a 3DO model, which is the custom model format used by Jedi Knight. You'll need the Blender-Sith Addon for Blender. With this you can import and export 3DO models and animations. Now theoretically this is the only one you need because it can do everything and create a model that works in the game. However, in practice I end up using a couple of other programs. I'll put all these links in the description. In your browser, navigate to github.com/smlu/Blender-Sith. This is the main add-on that works with Blender 2.79b. This doesn't appear to be mentioned in the GitHub page, but when I tried it, you need a very specific version of Blender for this to work. 2.79b is not a main release version. Anyway, this is not the version of the add-on I use. If you go over to Forks, right here, click on this fork by Sith Martyr, you can get the add-on for Blender 4.1. And I'm using this in Blender 4.2 without issues. Click on the releases and download the zip file right here. Okay, next you want to go to Masasi.net and click on the Programs link. So, programs here. I recommend you get ZED or one of the level editors based on JED. Why do I need a level editor, you might think? Well, this program also supports 3DO files, and in my experience it's the most reliable program for making 3DOs. What I mean by that is I've tried many other programs, and most of them, they will sometimes output a file that appears to be valid, but when you put it in the game, it just won't work. It'll show up as a little cube, or it might even crash the game when the level loads, in the worst case. ZED is like a sanity check. Just import your model and then export it back out, and it should work. ZED also has a useful function that lets you copy a hierarchy from a different model, and I'll demonstrate that later. Also, a program you'll probably need, I've come down to the Mat section, is Mat16. This program lets you create 16-bit mat files. Mat is the image format Jedi Knight uses, so you'll convert all of your textures to mat with this. And then next, go to jkdf2.net/jkbot/jkarchive and click on Game Files, Tools, 3DO, and find joke077.zip. Joke is a simple 3DO editor. It's good for making fixes to the actual 3DO file, or just use it as a quick model viewer to view the final file. I use it all the time, but you don't really need it, but it helps. So back in Blender, you want to install the Blender-Sith Addon. Go to Edit, Preferences, Add-ons, click the little drop down over here, install from disk. Find the zip file you downloaded and then click install from disk. Once it's installed, it'll show up here as Sith Game Engine Formats 3DO, and make sure this checkbox is enabled. So what I'm doing is replacing an old model with a new model. So this is the original model. You're going to go to File, Import, Sith Game Engine 3D model. Find the original model, import. Jedi Knight uses sectional 3D models. There are no mesh deformations, so each part is a separate mesh, as you can see here. They're arranged in a hierarchy, and each part rotates around its pivot point for animation. So This is how it would animate. It's important that each mesh in your new model be 500 triangles or less, or the model won't work in Jedi Knight. To get around this limit, you can divide a mesh into 2 or more meshes. For example, here's the new model. I have the torso divided into 2 meshes, the head divided into 2 meshes. In order to see the number of triangles over here, I'm going to come over to the Show Overlays drop-down and click on Statistics. Just make sure every mesh is under 500 triangles. Also, there's no mesh limit. So you can see the hierarchy of a model. Left arm, which is parented to the, or a child of the torso. The torso is a child of the, well, of this dummy node, as is the hip. To make a replacement, all of the names will have to be the same, and the hierarchy will need to be the same. Okay, I'm going to save this file out as the original and then append it into my new file. The reason I'm doing that is because if the new model has the same mesh names, the appended file mesh names will be changed, and that's what I want. I don't want to change the mesh names of my new model, because that way I would have to rename them all. So save this as a Blender file. I already have this saved out. Okay, now I'm opening up my new model. All of the names are the same. So let me append the original. Let's select everything. Append. Okay, as you can see, the original is offset, so the feet are at 0 height, but my new model is not. The importer is accounting for what is called the insert offset in the file. This is a height value that the character in the game gets pushed up by. The thing is, when exporting, you do not want that offset on all the meshes. So we're going to click on the root node. This Z value right here is the insert offset. I'm just going to set that to 0. And as you can see, my new model is already lined up where it should be. One thing that I need to mention about mesh names, the meshes need to be the correct names to work with the animations, so that they are matching the same names as the old model here. The one that matters is the mesh name. So this is the node, right? Down one level, you have the mesh. So this is the name that gets exported right here. This one really doesn't matter, but I name them the same so that I know what I'm looking at. Make sure that these are all named the right name. Here's the old model, and as you can see, all the names got appended with 0.001, and that's good. I'm just going to delete this later anyway, but if you do it the opposite way and import the new model into the old, then your new model will have all the mesh names with the 001, and then you'll have to rename them all. So just be aware. So from here, you would line up your new model's meshes with the old model's meshes, which I have done already. Make sure everything matches, and be aware of where the pivot points are, because that's where your mesh is going to rotate. Now, if you want, you can set all the pivot points of your new model in Blender. This is very time consuming, which is why I use the hierarchy loader in ZED. But to do that, you would select the old mesh, object, snap, cursor to selected, then select the new mesh, object, set origin to 3D cursor. And then you would do that for every single mesh. Okay, once your new mesh is all set up, or your new model is all set up, you can just delete the old model. And note that my model is missing the gun, but I've added that in later because this character uses 2 different guns in 2 different models. Now I need to talk about the textures. Go into the shading tab. Jedi Knight can display textures over 256 by 256 pixels, but due to the way it handles UV maps, your textures need to be exported at 256 pixels or less. What I do is I have the model's textures at full resolution while I work on the model, and then right before I export, I make copies of the textures and resize them to 256 by 256 pixels. And you're going to want to apply those to the model. So I have these here, torso low, because they're low res. Then you just include the full resolution materials with the model for the game, and they should work. Now the model is ready to export. To export, you're going to make one of the meshes the parent of all the other meshes. So I have this done already, as the hip is the parent of all the rest. Select the hip mesh and then go to File, Export, Sith Game Engine 3D Model, and then save it out. Okay, now you're going to open ZED. File, Import. Import our 3DO. And press plus to zoom in. Press 2 to go to the front view. Now go to Tools, 3DO Hierarchy, and I'm going to load the original model. Okay, now this is the hierarchy of the original model. I'm going to click Add Missing Nodes. What that does is brings in all the other nodes that are not part of this hierarchy, and it creates an orphan things node, and that does nothing, so you can just delete it. All of these then need to be children of node that they were split from. So remember, I split the head up into multiple pieces, so the head face should be a child of the head, and as you can see, I named them what they should be a child of as well. So hip belt goes to the hip, ponytail goes to the head, R leg, holster goes to the R leg, and torso left goes to torso. Okay, now that this is done, you can just click off of this and you're ready to re-export it back out. Press Alt and drag the mouse to drag a box around the whole thing. Select everything. File, Export Sectors as 3DO. Okay, save it out. Now I'm going back to the original game model. Open it in a text editor and scroll down to the Insert Offset value, which is right here. I'm going to copy that. Remember, this is that value that pushes your character up. If you don't change this, he'll be sitting in the floor. Then I'm going to go to the new model, which is P2 tutorial I just made. And you can see it's a 0. I'm just going to paste the old value in there. Save, close it. Okay. This model should be usable in the game now. As a final check, you can open it in Joke. Okay. And quick check on the hierarchy looks correct. Everything looks good. But if you come over here and look at it with textured, oh no, it's all messed up. Well, why does that happen? Remember that Jedi Knight will read textures above 256 correctly if they're UV mapped correctly, but Joke does not. So if you're gonna do any work in Joke and you want the textures to be correct, all you have to do is take your low res textures and make those into mats, and then put those in the folder. And then here's an example of that. And yeah, the texture scaled down, everything looks correct. And again, you just include the high-res textures with the game model for the game. And that should be it. What do you think? Did this help you out? Do you have any questions? Let me know in the comments. Bye.